The webinar we're presenting right now is using TradeLog for the first time. Some of you might be your first webinar with us. We welcome you this afternoon. Some of you may have been with us this morning. We had our webinar on an introduction to TradeLog version 9, which is new for 2012. So if you're back, we welcome you back. We also have some more webinars coming up later this afternoon. We'll be repeating our session on using TradeLog, on introduction to TradeLog version 9. We'll be doing that at 4 p.m. this afternoon again. So if you missed it this morning and you want to learn more about TradeLog version 9, you can join us. But we will be discussing some of the features of version 9 here as well about using TradeLog. This session is primarily focused for using TradeLog for the first time. If you have been using TradeLog in the past, you might still benefit from this, but we do have a session at 2 o'clock this afternoon on using TradeLog again. So that session might be better suited for you, but of course you're welcome to stay with us today. Just a few items before we get started into our demonstration and webinar. Some information from our friends in the legal department, just to remind you that the information we present is for education and information uses. We are not providing investment recommendations, nor do we provide financial, tax, or legal advice. The things that we do discuss about when it comes to tax situations, they kind of apply in general. So we encourage you to consult your tax advisor to discuss your specific situation, especially questions that you have. Some questions you may submit, I'll just tell you right now, if they're very specific tax questions, we are very cautious. We don't want to give you tax advice because we're not aware. So I may not be able to answer some of those types of questions. But if you contact our support department, we can direct you to some recommended advisors who can help you if you have complex situations. And of course, as always, you are responsible for your investment and tax reporting decisions. So we encourage you to evaluate any information that's delivered to you by Armin Computing and TradeLog software. That way you can make the right decisions. Some housekeeping as well. If you can't hear the audio, we encourage you to check your computer speakers. If you're having problems, if you're trying to listen through the computer, it might be something with your speakers. Sometimes it could be your internet connection. It may go in and out. Sometimes, unless everyone's having audio problems, there's not much I can do to fix it on my end. But we do also have a phone conference that this is being broadcast on, so you can switch to the telephone conference mode and call into that conference if you're having problems with the audio. You can send a message to me in the chat box if you have any problems with the audio or video. But if you have questions, go ahead and submit those in the Q&A box. I see some of you already are. And we'll try to answer them as we go along, and any that we don't get to, we'll answer at the end of the presentation. We hope to spend no more than 45 minutes going through the meat of our discussion today, but I do have some time at the end that we'll be able to stick around and answer some additional questions you might have about using TradeLog. Please don't send your questions in the chat box because they'll get lost and I might not be able to find them. So send them in the Q&A box. That way I can keep up with them better. I appreciate your help with that. My name is Jason Derbyshire. I am the Business Development Manager here with TradeLog Software. So I'm going to be presenting to you today to help you get to know more about using TradeLog for the first time. Again, this is designed primarily for first-time users. Looking at our registration details, most of you, this is your first year using TradeLog, or some of you haven't used TradeLog at all yet. And so we're going to help you see how to get started with TradeLog. Some of these are basic steps, but very important steps, because one key with using TradeLog, if you start correctly and you get everything set up, it's going to be so much easier using TradeLog in the years to follow. There are a few more steps involved when you're using TradeLog for the very first time that you won't have to repeat in future years as long as you do it right. And so we want to help you get started and be successful. So some of the things we're going to learn about, we're going to cover some of the key steps. These are actually highlighted in our Quick Start Guide. Particularly, we're going to talk about downloading and installing TradeLog first of all, and then we'll talk about creating data files, entering baseline positions, importing your data, and we'll talk about verifying year-end opens. Now, we're not going to cover all the steps involved with finalizing your tax year files for 2011. The reason being, if you currently subscribe to TradeLog, you know that we have not yet enabled the final tax reporting for Form 8949. And so that's going to be coming here very soon once we've signed off completely on the changes and release that. And we will be having a special webinar about filing taxes and completing 2011 as soon as that is available. So we're going to get everything up to that point. That way it'll be very easy. As soon as that's enabled, you'll be able to finish off your taxes and be done. We're also going to discuss how to get support if you do have problems with TradeLog. We have very comprehensive support, the most comprehensive support of any trader tax software. We're very proud of that. We want to help you to be able to resolve problems that you do have very quickly. So let's first talk about downloading and installing TradeLog and what's involved with that and some of the steps. Most of you have already purchased TradeLog, and so when you purchased TradeLog, you should have received an email that confirmed your purchase, that also had instructions for downloading, and you may have gone directly to the download page. So you've probably already downloaded and installed TradeLog, and if you did, you probably have something on, excuse me, we're going to go back here. You probably have an icon either on your desktop or in your start menu for TradeLog version 9. If you purchase the software, if you have TradeLog version 8, we do encourage you, you need to go ahead and update your software. You want to get version 9 installed on your computer. Version 9 is going to overwrite and replace TradeLog 8, but it will not, if you've started any data files, it's not going to get rid of that. It's just going to replace the actual program. TradeLog 9 has new infrastructure in it that's going to support the new reporting, and it's also much, much easier to use, especially for first-time users. So that's what we're going to use today. If you haven't yet downloaded the software or you need to download it again, you can go to our website anytime. And on our support menu here, we have the option to download the latest update. You'll also see it if you just go to our support center. On the right-hand side, we have some options here for support, and you can go from here, you can go to download latest update as well. So once you go to the download page, you just need to fill out your information that you use when purchasing and the registration code that was issued for you. You should have received that in an email. If you don't have your registration code, just contact our support department and we can look that up for you. We'll ask you to verify some information and then we'll get that for you so you can get set up. So you can do this at any time if you need to download the software, especially too if people ask, how can I install it on another computer, or I need to reinstall it. Just go here anytime you have an active subscription and you can download that setup file and install it. So that's very important to get started. Once you install the software, you should have an icon for TradeLog 9. When you open up your software, if there's any updates to the software, it's going to prompt you here at the bottom, and usually there'll be a pop-up message as well that'll prompt you to update your software. So we do encourage you to keep your software up to date. Some users, they feel they shouldn't update. They're worried it's going to change something, but our updates are to help us better support brokers. As soon as a broker tries, if they change their reporting, we have to make updates for that import. So anytime we have an important update, we are going to push that out to your software. It's going to prompt you for that. We do have other updates. If they're not important, we won't prompt you for it, and it might be a specific situation. So keep your software up to date. That's going to help you out a lot. When you first open up TradeLog, just to give you a little summary here, we have a new welcome screen in version 9. So here it has your options for creating files, opening existing files. It shows files recently opened on your computer. You also have your help resources here on the right-hand side. When you click on the user guides, it's going to open that up directly in the TradeLog software. If you click on our online resources, it's going to take you to our web page where we have that, or the TradeLog blog. I'll pop that over here. So we have our blog that has some resources on it. We also have our support pages online. So those links are right there if you need some help. We do encourage you to check out our video tutorials. These are being updated right now for our new version, but those are good if you really need to get started with particular steps. Those are going to help you out as well. And if you have questions about tax filing, Tax Topics is a great thing on our website to check out. It really goes in depth about tax forms and some of the situations you might deal with. Another important feature I want to show you in TradeLog, especially for first-time users, at the bottom of the window we have a Quick Start panel. This follows along as you use TradeLog, and it uses our 8-step Quick Start guide. You notice you can click on the full Quick Start guide, which is located in our help file, and we have the 8 steps This is a more comprehensive. It'll give you screenshots and stuff for each step. But the Quick Start panel is designed to give you a quick summary of those steps and kind of help you know what you need to do. So as you move through TradeLog, it's going to try to follow you along, and it's going to direct you to the step that you're probably on, and you can always choose a step as well. And if you want to look at tutorials, you can click on the online tutorials, and it'll go online, or you can click on help, and it'll go straight to that step in our Quick Start guide where you can get more details. So we're going to leave the Quick Start panel on. You will notice you can change the size of that. Everyone's got different monitor sizes anymore, so you can adjust that. And you can turn it on and off by going to Global Options. But as a first-time user, we're going to keep that on because that's going to be important. Now, before we talk about creating new data files, I want to mention just briefly, when TradeLog is set up on your computer, it's going to set up a folder in your My Documents. So if we go to our Documents folder here, I'm using Windows 7, and we go in Documents to here under Documents, we have a TradeLog folder. My throat. Here, the TradeLog folder is the default location where TradeLog is going to store your data files, and we really encourage you to keep your files in this default location. Two reasons. Number one, you always know where your data files are, and when you contact support, if we need to look at a data file with you, you'll know where to go. It's also good for backing up because you are encouraged. Windows users always encourage back up your Documents folder regularly, and this way if you back up the entire Documents folder, you'll be backing up all of your TradeLog files as well, so you'll reduce any risk if you lose them. Hard drives crash, and we always hate it when someone calls and they've lost an entire year's worth of work or something because they didn't back up their file. So that's a good best practice we really encourage, especially for new users. And we'll be looking at this a little more, but I wanted to highlight that right now. So if this is the first time using TradeLog, when you open this up, the first thing you're going to need to do is create a new data file. So what we're going to do is click on the option to create a new file. Now, so you understand a little bit about how TradeLog works, you will need to create a data file for each brokerage account that you have. So some of you have multiple brokerage accounts. They might be with the same broker, they might be with different brokers. You can create as many files as you need to. Now, if you purchased a limited version of TradeLog, such as our 200, 600, or 1500 record versions, you will be limited based on the number of records, but there's no limit in how many files you have. And the record limit is per tax year. So if you still need to file 2010 taxes, for example, you can use your subscription to go back and do 2010, then you can do 2011, and you could just continue on for 2012. We're going to say we're starting with 2011. I will mention this. If, for example, you needed to file 2010 taxes still, or you need to file an amended 2010 return, it's always best to go to that earliest file first, to do that work in TradeLog, because some of the steps I'm going to show you only have to be done once when you set up TradeLog, and it'll roll over positions to the next year. So if you start with 2011 and then you go back and do 2010 later, it's going to be a lot more work for you. So if you happen to have that situation, that's a little tidbit to help you out. So what we're going to do when we create a new data file is we need to identify the tax year for this file. So if we're working on 2011 taxes, we want to choose the 2011 for a 2011 tax year file. And then we want to give our file a name. This name is going to identify our account. Oftentimes you might want to put the brokerage name, especially if you have more than one brokerage you work for. You might want to put your last name, or maybe if you and your spouse have separate accounts, whatever you need to do to identify the account as yours. I'll tell you a wonderful best practice. You can see it here in the background. Many of our users, they'll identify their file with their last name and their account number. That way it's really easy for them to identify what account that file is for, and it is also helpful in keeping things from getting mixed up. If you just say Fidelity, well, that doesn't necessarily mean much if you happen to have multiple Fidelity files. So a good best practice here. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this my Fidelity trading file. And and I'm just going to create that. That tells me that this is my Fidelity account, but it's my trading account. I might have an IRA as well. I might have something else, some sort of pension account or whatever with Fidelity. This way I know it's my trading account. You'll notice the default location, TradeLog is storing my files in my Documents TradeLog folder. If I do need to store my files in a different location, I can do Select Folder, and I can locate that folder. For example, if you're like me, you might use a network attached storage drive, or you might have an external drive where you keep certain data. So if you do need to move the location, that's fine. We just encourage you to keep all your TradeLog files in that one location and make that your default. So whatever you need to do, choose your file or just leave it at the default and click OK. Now once you click OK, the next step is TradeLog wants to identify what broker you'll be importing from for this particular file. So it detected the Fidelity in my file name, and so that's why it defaulted here to Fidelity. So I can proceed with that. If it's a different broker, I can choose from all the different supported brokers. Also, there's other options. If your broker is not supported, we have a Quicken import. So if your broker provides data in a QFX or QIF format, you can import that. And also we have an Excel text import. So if you are importing data from an Excel file, we have specific instructions. You'll identify that at this time. You can always change it later, but usually you're going to have one import method for each data file. So I'll go ahead and select Fidelity. When I click OK, it proceeds to the next step. So now you'll notice here at the top that where my mouse is, the button here is for Fidelity Import. So this is now my import button, and it's going to default to the Fidelity. If you ever need to change that, you can do it by going into Options, Import Filter, and you can go back and change that at any time. You can also change, for example, with Fidelity here, if I go in here, I can have it so it doesn't, instead of asking me, it goes to a specific method of import. I'm just going to leave that on Select each time for now. So now that I've created my data file, you'll notice here at the top of the window, I have 2011 Fidelity Trading, and it shows the location of my data file. So I have a data file that's sitting here ready to go, but there's no data in it. But you notice on the Quick Start panel down below, it's now moved us to step 2, which is entering baseline positions. This is a very important step for first-time TradeLog users. We strongly encourage you, do not skip this important step. You do have to enter any positions that were held open into the first tax year data file you're working on. TradeLog has no way of going out and automatically finding out what positions you carried forward into this year. None of the brokers provide an accurate reporting of that data. So this is the one part of TradeLog where it does take a little bit of manual entering, but it's important if you do it right the first time, you're not going to have problems later on. And the good news is, going forward, at the end of each tax year, TradeLog will automatically roll over positions carried forward. So this is an important step. Please don't skip it, because it's one of the #1 problems that we find when users contact us and there's a problem in their file. They failed to enter baseline positions correctly. So how do I enter baseline positions? Well, one of the things I can do, we have a tutorial about this, or if I click on Help, it's going to go to our Help file. And we give some real detailed information here about how to look up baseline positions, how to identify them. And so this is good to read over if you have problems understanding. And then from here we have how to enter those baseline positions if indeed you have positions. If you closed out of everything at the end of each day or at the end of the year, then you won't need to enter baseline positions. But we often find many traders and especially investors have got positions that have been carried forward. So I'm going to show you some of these steps. The key first is we need to identify, did I have positions that were held open from the previous year? And the best way to do that is to look at my brokerage statement for December of the year previous. So this is a 2011 file. So I want to find my brokerage statement for December 2010. And I'm going to open that up here, and give me just one moment. So here in my brokerage statement, I'm going to open this up, and we can see in our statement it's going to tell us what positions we had open at the end of the year. And we're going to find this usually right at the beginning. There's something for holdings. So here it tells me my holdings at the beginning of, or excuse me, at the end of December of 2010. So this is important because it's going to be what I use to determine, what I need to enter in. So based on the holdings, I can know in this case there was no stocks. Well, there was UBS here that was held open. Let me find. I think this is a statement I need to open. Scroll down a little further. Yeah. So, but once we identify what holdings we have, the key next is we need to actually find the transaction information. Let me find another example here because I think that's actually a different account. My apologies. Bear with me just 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and open up my Fidelity account, and I'll pull up the statement there because that'll just be easier for you to read. Now, some brokers make it really easy at the end of the year. They list your positions. They also have pending. Some brokers make it a little more difficult. So I will caution you that you want to make sure that your broker is telling you everything you need as far as, here we go. Here's the right file. So here I have my statement from Fidelity for December 2010. And when I look at holdings, the thing I have to also take in consideration is sometimes you have trades that are pending settlement, and your broker will not report that under holdings because it hadn't settled. However, because the trade occurred in that tax year, it was a position you held open. So one of the things I always encourage everyone is scroll down and see if you have any trades pending settlement. In this case, Fidelity is not reporting any pending trades, so that's a good thing. If I did have trades pending settlement, there would be a section for that. So always check that out. So in my account here, I can see that for stocks, I had 300 shares of BEN is the ticker, and that is a short position. So those were held open at the end of 2010. I also have 3 options that are here. An option for ABX, for Citigroup, and for Royal Bank of Scotland. So these 3 options, as well as the stock, need to be entered in TradeLog. But you'll notice one of the problems is I don't have the details for each of these, exactly when they were bought and how much I paid for them, and that's what's needed. Usually what you have to do at this point, you can go into your broker, you can identify that. Each broker is different. Some you can actually drill down in your account. The easiest thing to do is to go and take a look at your December statement. And what I do is go to the end of the statement and I just scroll backwards. And I find, for example, that here are some of my, this is my short position for BEN. So there's 100 and there's 200. So these are the trades that I need to enter into TradeLog to account for those 300 shares. So those are what I'll actually enter in. I can do the same for my options. As I mentioned, this can be a little bit tedious sometimes, and what we recommend is maybe to just make a list of the positions that you held open. Once you have that list, it's a lot easier than to go ahead and enter them into TradeLog. Let's go ahead and do a couple demonstrations here. I'll show you how to enter those baselines in TradeLog. Let's start with this particular trade. We know the ticker is BEN for this. That's the other problem I know with Fidelity. Sometimes they don't tell you what the ticker is, so that can be challenging. So what I'm going to do, I like this feature in Windows 7, except for if you use 2 monitors like I do. I'll go ahead and put TradeLog on one side here so we can see the information we're entering. You'll notice in the instructions down here it says to enter baseline positions, I can either go to the Add menu and click on Enter Baseline Positions, or I can just click the F7 button on my keyboard. And what that does is it creates a position manually, but I need to fill in the details. So first it's going to want to know the date that I bought those shares. So for this case, even though they were held open at the end of the year, I need to put the actual date I bought the shares. So I'm going to take this first position, which was 12/29/2010. And because this was a short position, I'm going to put O in the open and close column because it isn't open, but it's a short position. So this is when I entered into a short sale. For the ticker, I'll put the actual ticker symbol. This is important. Don't put descriptions. You want to put the ticker symbol in because that's what TradeLog needs to use to properly match with your trade history. And that's how the IRS wants it reported. So now I need to put the number of shares. In this case, it was 100 shares that I was short, and the price, we'll notice, was 108.932 per share. So I'll put 108.932. The next thing I need to do is see if there was any commission on this particular trade. Here it reports my cost was $8.14. So I can put in the commission 8.14, and now that's really all I need to enter because TradeLog is going to calculate the amount in profit and loss. So I can hit the enter key. I want to hit it twice, and it's going to ask me to save the record. I'll click yes. Enter another open position? Yes, I will. So now I can go and enter my open position that was on 12/23. So what we'll do is go in here and I'll put 12/23/2010. This was also an open short for BEN, and the number of shares this time is going to be 200 shares. And the price was 111.234, and my commission or fees was $8.33. I'll hit enter twice and save those records. Right now I'm going to click no as if we're not entering more open positions. You'll notice it moves to my next step, which is importing trade history. The reason I click no is I want to show you in TradeLog, we added this in TradeLog 9. Say, for example, that I realized that I had other open positions and I need to go back and enter those. At any time I can just click the F7 key, or I can go to Add, Enter Baseline Positions, and it'll go back to the baseline position mode. You notice it's here in yellow at the bottom. So what we want to do is then go ahead and put in the other positions that I had open. And I'm going to scroll up here and look at my option trades, and I had some option positions here. So let's just do one of these options. We're going to do the call for ABX. This was a $50 call, and there were 6 that I need to find. So again, I want to go to the end of my file and scroll backwards, because that way I can make sure that I have, first in, first out, which in this case I'm looking for the last ones that were in. And it's up here under my investment activity, and here it is. 12/29, I had a call, and this was a long position, so I'm going to put it as open long. If you have questions about how to enter options, sometimes it's confusing whether you are open long or open short. Basically, it matters if you were the writer or the holder. The best thing is to click on the help option here, and we give some details in our help file on how to enter positions and how options should be entered. So when you get down there, you can look at how to enter options properly. Once you kind of get a grasp of, are an option trader, you get a good understanding. In this case, it was a long position, and it was for it's for ABX. So it's important in TradeLog that I enter my options in a particular format. And again, we give this in the instructions. It starts with an underlying ticker symbol. So in this case, it's ABX. Next, I need to enter the date of the actual expiration date. And I do that by putting the 22 January 11. This is a standardized format that we use for all brokers, and actually is an industry format as well, even though some statements report it in different ways. But this tells the date, month, and year that this particular option expires. And this is important in TradeLog because TradeLog can use this later with some of our automated features. Next, I need to put the strike price. This is a $50, and then I need to put whether it's a call or a put. Once I put that in, I can go to the next field, and it's going to ask me for the number of shares or contracts. There were 6 contracts in this case, and the price per contract was 3.58, and the cost was, got to stop here in a type. It's important that under type or multiplier, you choose what type of trade this is. This is an option, so I'm going to choose OPT-100. Again, our help file gives more details if you're wondering about other types of trades. Basically, I'll give you a brief rundown. We have stocks, mutual funds, options, single stock futures, dividend reinvestment plan stocks, futures, and currencies. So most of you are going to do a lot with stocks and options, so we'll just keep it to that for right now. And then we put in our actual fees. In this case, it was $12.53. I can hit enter twice. It asks me to save the record, and I'm going to click no right now just so we can take a look at what I have. You'll notice TradeLog groups records together by trade number. So here are my BEN shares. Because they were similar, it groups them as one trade. This trade number isn't anything real particular. It's nothing that comes from your broker. It's just a methodology that TradeLog has used for many years now to kind of help group trades together, make it easier to look over your trade history. Once I close out of a position completely, it's going to start a new trade number for any future shares for that. The question was asked by Joe about the cost of the shares that I put in. I'm just going based on the statement here right now and what these were traded. This was in 2010 that these were traded, so whether or not that's 100% precise, it is based on what the cost per share is entered. For Fidelity, they're not adjusting the actual fees or commissions for the price, but this is what was reported of what I bought my shares at. Okay, so what we're going to do now is once we have our bases put in for these positions, we can import. Now in this case, I still have some more open positions to enter, but just for the sake of time, I've already went ahead and set these up, and I'm just going to switch over to this particular file. So here I have my shares that are set up in my 2011 Fidelity file, and I've set up all of these baseline positions in TradeLog. So we're basically ready at this point to import our trade history. Again, we want to make sure we have baselines correct. If later we happen to realize we need to go back, we can go back and adjust those at a later time. So now, when it comes to importing our trade history, you notice the steps, the instructions are at the bottom. It says to go ahead and click the Fidelity Import button to start the process. We have a couple different options on how we can import our trade history. I can use Broker Connect, or I can use an Excel CSV file. So some brokers, we have Broker Connect. What that does is it allows us to automatically connect with the broker with your account. You'll put in your details, and it'll connect, and it'll actually retrieve that. Some brokers, we do not have Broker Connect support, so you'll have to download a file. And some we have multiple methods, such as with Fidelity. So I can either download a file, or I can do Broker Connect. With Broker Connect, it's going to ask me for my username, my password, my account number, and information. You'll notice your password is encrypted in there. This data is stored with your TradeLog file. It is encrypted, so if someone happens to break into your file, they're not able to get your password out of the file. It is encrypted. When you actually click OK, it's going to go in and it's going to log into your file or into your account, and usually you're going to see that visible. Depending on the broker, you're going to see it actually log in, download the data, and retrieve it. You'll notice it has a date range. This depends on your broker. For example, for Fidelity, we can only do 90 days at a time. So I'll actually have to import through April, and then I'll import the next 90 days, the next 90 days up to current. Some brokers do allow us to retrieve all the data at once, so you can actually get 13 months worth of data at one shot. So most of them it's either 90 days or they have multiple months. Whatever we can do, we can import up to our current date. Since 2011 is done, I'm going to hit cancel right now. Since 2011 is done, we're going to, at this point, want to import 13 months worth of data. If I was working on a 2012, then I can only import up until February 19th, so the end of yesterday. We do encourage you to keep your file up to date throughout the year. It makes it a whole lot easier at the end of the year when it comes tax reporting time. But for the sake of our reporting here today in this demonstration, what we need to do is import all of our data through January 31st of 2012. Now I'll stop here because you might be wondering, why do I need to import January data? And just one thing I'll mention, if you are a mark-to-market trader, this does not apply to you. You don't need January data. In fact, some of the steps we've even gone through, you wouldn't need to use TradeLog MTM. We're using just regular TradeLog. So a few differences. If you're mark-to-market, you'll want to go to our help file and you'll want to follow the instructions that apply for MTM traders. There are some particular traders or steps that apply to you. So what we want to do is import up to January 31st because of the wash sale rule. Basically, in order to calculate wash sales properly, TradeLog needs to know what trades occur in January of the next tax year. That way, the wash sale rule, which works 30 days forward and backwards, can check for any wash sales that were deferred to the next tax year. Once you import all of your data, including January, TradeLog is going to keep that data and roll it over to the next tax year. So when you open the next tax year file, you'll automatically have January data and you'll be able to continue importing. We'll discuss that a little more later. So going back to my import, when I select my import method, Diana had asked a question, why we not enter to March 31st. We could put March 31st. TradeLog just automatically takes the last date that we have in the file and adds 90 days. So in this case, it's April 1. We can choose March 31st, whatever we want to do. That would be fine. TradeLog's going to enter those dates automatically. So we can even go, if I want to do 1 month at a time, I can do that and just go March 1 to January 1 to January 31st. So that's kind of a date. TradeLog just throws that in automatically. For example, if today, if I had imported just part of the year, it's going to pick up from the last date and it's going to choose another 90-day period. The 90-day limit is not on a particular quarter basis from Fidelity. Fidelity just limits 90 days in the date range, so that's why we do that. Like I said, it's a little bit different with each broker based on their nuances in their reporting. For now, rather than going through the whole Broker Connect process with the webinar, if you bear with me just one moment, I'm going to, for demonstration purposes, import this a little bit differently. And let me just pause my screen. I just have to protect some confidential login information, and it's preferred that we not do it over our live webinar. So I'm going to import the data right now. And I'll show you what happens after I actually process the import. Moment. Okay, so once I've done the import, it retrieves the records, and you should be able to see my screen now, and it confirms to save the records. So in this case, I want to save a total of 1,831 records, so I'm going to click yes. And TradeLog is going to import those records, and it's going to match up. Now, I did something here. I wanted to show you what happens when there's if there's negative shares in a file. Sometimes if there's an error in TradeLog when it imports, it'll have negative shares. And what that means is that TradeLog is showing more shares closed than are showing as open. And you notice in this particular case, I have a lot of these records. Sometimes this happens and people will panic right away. Oh no, what's wrong? Oftentimes, the number one reason is if that broker does not report time of day, the trades are simply out of order. And TradeLog, because it's importing sales before it has open positions, it's showing that you're selling shares that you don't have. So one of the things I wanted to show you, why I did this on purpose, is the quickest way, if you have negative shares, you will notice it's listing all of those positions right here. So, for example, I can notice right away with this shares in MCP, you'll notice I have buys. It's just some of the sales are coming first. So what I can do is go to File, and I can do, I go to Edit menu, and simply do Fix Trades Out of Order, and do Yes. And this is going to go into TradeLog, and it's going to fix everything out of order, and it's going to put any buys before the sells, unless they were a short sale. Of course, that's different. So that's one function that you might use if you happen to see those negative share errors quick. Now, some brokers are extremely complex because they don't report short sales either. So in those cases, we do have some automated functions in TradeLog that auto-assign short positions. So if TradeLog detects a sell when you don't have any shares open, it's going to flag that as a short sell. So if you have one of those brokers, you'll notice we have that in the import instructions, that TradeLog's automatically going to turn on that function and do that. We try to make it so that most of the times when you import, the data comes in and imports right away. But I wanted to do, that's why I did that one on purpose, just to show you, in case you see the negative share error, that's one of the first things to do is do fix trades out of order, see what happens then. If you continue to have negative shares, then you can follow the instructions on how to get more help. So now I have my whole trade history. This is just for December 28, 2011. So now I can actually import again. Let me do this again real quick here. And you'll notice that when I import, it's going to now import through January 31st, and I can save my records. Now here's another thing that sometimes comes up is you need to change CUSIP numbers. If you have a broker that reports CUSIPs and they change the ticker to a CUSIP, you're going to have to change, this is usually in Fidelity, you're going to have to change the CUSIP. What TradeLog is going to do is automatically go out and it's going to look that up if it can, and it's going to save the record. If it doesn't find it, it's going to come back and tell you the following CUSIPs were not found. So what you'll do is just need to look that up on your monthly statement, and you'll need to enter in the ticker symbol for that. So that's another little trick I wanted to show you. The reason I chose Fidelity, Fidelity has some of the most frequent little nuances with that, with not reporting time and also with changing things to CUSIP numbers. The IRS says you need to put the actual security. CUSIP numbers, just don't work. So that's why you have to have that. But once I have all of my data in here, I'll deal with that CUSIP situation later. You'll notice that TradeLog matches my positions here. It has those trade numbers. It has all of my stocks and options. It shows me a summary up here on the summary bar of what I've got going on my account. The last date is January 31st. So now I can actually, I've got my data. You'll notice the next step that it goes to is verifying imported data. And so one of the things that we want to do is check for errors. If there's negative share errors that show up, we need to deal with that. In this case, I've gotten rid of my negative share errors. If I need to verify open positions, then the next step is to verify my open positions. So that's what I need to do as well to verify my imported data. Basically, what we want to do is confirm that what TradeLog reports at the end of 2011 matches with what your broker had at 2011. So you can do that by clicking on the Open button. Again, I'll show you that. It's up here in the top left corner. Just click on the Open button. And this goes to Open Positions View. And what I can do now is I can actually see the positions that are reported open as of a certain date. So here I've got that annoying CUSIP that I'll have to change here in a minute. But what I want to do is just look at year-end open positions, because that's what I want to reconcile is my 2001 data. So as of 12/31/2011, this is the data that I have reported. So I need to go ahead and find my broker statement and figure out if this matches. So just one moment and I'll show you here what we've got going on. So once we go look into our broker statement, what we can do is look at these to make sure, just like we looked at before, we want to make sure that these positions were what our broker showed as held open at the end of the year. And to deal with this ticker problem here, one of the things I want to show you is if you double click, it'll actually open up all of the shares that I had there. So looking at my broker statement, I can find what this ticker is now. This was in December and it closed in January. And this particular trade was looks like the ticker, the symbol on that was CRM. This might have been a little complicated one. But what I can do is just select these shares, and then I can do edit, and I can do change ticker. And here's where I can actually enter in whatever the final ticker symbol was for those particular transactions. So let's just say I'm going to put CRM right now, and I can click yes, and it's going to rematch and renumber that. Okay, so that's a little bit with that. Now I want to take you to a file right now. Yes, here's a file that has a little bit different situation in it that I've already created. One of the things you might find when you click on the open position view, you may find that there are options that are showing as open that maybe have already closed. So what you want to do is actually adjust any of those options that need to be closed out. So for example, I have some October 2011 calls here. So it looks like these they're past their expiration date. So those need to be closed out automatically in TradeLog. And what I can do is just click on Expire Options, and TradeLog is going to make the proper adjustments, and it's going to come back, and you'll notice now those shares have been expired. So if you trade options, many times brokers do not expire options. They don't report the expiration. So that's a great function you can use to just expire those options. Now it actually gives me a list of my open positions, and I can click year end. And in this case, at the year end, I didn't have any shares open for this particular account. So when I look at my broker statement for December 2011, it should not show any positions held open or pending as of the end of that month. And that's good, because what I want to make sure is that TradeLog is reporting the same as my broker reports. If there are positions that are reported on the statement that aren't in TradeLog or vice versa, then that's an indication that something needs to be addressed in my data file. It may be that there was corporate action, such as a stock split that occurred that I need to adjust for. It might be that I failed to import all of my data correctly. You can go to our help guide by clicking help here, and it'll give you more instructions on what to do if there's some discrepancies and how you can drill down on that. This is the first step to verifying your data at the end of the year. The next step in TradeLog after we've completed verifying is reconciling our 1099. At this point for 2011, we're not going to reconcile our proceeds yet because first of all, I have to have my 1099-B. Some brokers still have not issued those. But also TradeLog we haven't yet released our 2011 tax finalization. So you'll want to wait until we release that in order to reconcile your files. The reason is the way brokers report 1099-B for 2011 and what they've done in the past is a little bit different. So we've been studying 1099s to make sure that we address that. And then once we reconcile, that's when we know that our trade history matches up and we can proceed with handling year-end processes. So at this point, we're not going to cover that in this particular webinar. As soon as we release the final updates in TradeLog 9 for 2011 tax reporting, we're going to have another webinar. We're going to actually go through these steps in your data file. But for now, if you're a first-time user, we want you to go ahead in the next few days and import all of your data through January of 2012. go ahead and verify your year-end open positions, make sure everything matches, deal with any changes you might need to adjust for or any errors that might come up in your file. And then once that final tax reporting is released, you'll be ready to go. Now I want to make a few mentions here. We've had some questions as far as with different, if you have multiple accounts, you will want to set up a data file for each account. So I can close out of here and go back to the welcome screen, and I can create another data file. Say I have another Fidelity account. I can go ahead and create a data file for that. Maybe I have an E-Trade account, whatever it is. And then once I've done all of those, when I get to my year-end process, I'm going to combine those files. Once we've reconciled all our 1099s, then we'll create a combined file for reporting purposes. But you do want to keep those separate. Now a question might come up about non-taxable accounts, an IRA. Currently, TradeLog does not have an automated function for handling wash sales between taxable and non-taxable accounts. Certainly you can use TradeLog to keep a track of your IRA account or any non-taxable account. Just set up a data file just like you would any other data file. But we do caution you might want to put in the description that it's an IRA or that's non-taxable, just so you don't accidentally combine that, because you don't want to report it for taxes. If you review some of our information, technically the IRS says to adjust wash sales between IRAs and taxable accounts. This is a very, very difficult thing to do because the wash sale rule is completely different. I'm not 100% sure. I know we are working on an automated function. Right now, since there's no software that does it, we're trying to come out with the first function that will address this, and in doing that, we'll provide the details at that time. If you do have wash sales, if you trade the same security in an IRA that you trade in a taxable account, you can contact our support department and we can direct you to some instructions on how to manually adjust those wash sales if you want to make those manual adjustments in your reporting. But if you do want to do a TradeLog file, you can. Just make sure and keep that separate from your taxable accounts. I'm going to do just a few more. I'm going to show you one more thing here, and then I'll answer some of the questions that we have and go back to. One of the questions at this point we might say, well, what if I get stuck? What if I have a problem? You know, TradeLog, you might have even seen on our website, we have what we call a 15-minute challenge. We don't want you to spend more than 15 minutes stuck on a problem. It doesn't mean you're going to necessarily finish your whole reporting in 15 minutes. Many users do, but that just depends on how many accounts you have. But if you get stuck and you're having an error, you can't figure out what the problem is, TradeLog's not working right, please don't spend more than 15 minutes on it. See if you can figure it out with our help instructions, but if you can't figure it out, contact our support department so that we can help you get back on track as soon as possible. To contact us, we have our 800 number. We are open for tax season. We're open 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday that you can call our support line and you can get an agent. We can help you out. Or you can send us an online support request as well. Let me go ahead and open up our TradeLog window here. One second. Find where I did with it. Here on our website, TradeLogSoftware.com, if you go to the support tab, there's a support menu here. Our main support center, we have our phone number and our hours, so you can contact us there. We also have an online support request, so you can enter in information and you can send the details of your problem. You can even attach your TradeLog data files. But I want to show you the easiest way if you're using TradeLog and you get stuck on a problem. I'm going to open up one of my files here. You can go to the Help menu, and we have an option that's called Send Vials to Support. When I click on that, it opens up a box where it has my name, my email address, and then I can go ahead and type what my problem is and hit send. And what it's going to do is it's going to send our support department an email that has your problem description, and it's also going to attach your TradeLog data file. This is very helpful because we can actually look at your data, we can look at your problem, and we can usually find the solution very quickly. Sometimes users just send us an email and tell us the problem, but without looking at the data, it's hard for us to solve it. So that's the best way to get support, is send us a support request there with your data file, and then we can send you an email back. Or if we need to talk to you about it on the phone, we can arrange for you to call, and we can talk about it on the phone. As I mentioned on the welcome screen, we also have other resources here that you can go to get help as well. Our quick start guide, our user guide, which are in TradeLog, so you can check that out. So that's important for you for getting help. We do want to make sure we provide the help you need. I will add this, though, that we do not provide tax accounting services. So if you contact us, if you need us to use the software for you, we don't do that. That's not part of our technical support. We do have partners that we work with, though. So if you say, hey, you know what, I'd rather just pay someone to do this for me, we have partners that will either do full CPA services. We have partners who just simply do TradeLog services, kind of like bookkeeping services for you. So if you're interested in that, you can call us and we can give you their information and you could talk to them. But we don't provide tax advice and we don't provide tax services. So we can help you with the software. We can help you get, if you're stuck with the problem, we can help you get going. But if you have a particular tax question or you need services like that, we'll direct you to a proper partner who we know can handle it properly. So that's kind of the main meat of our session today, but I want to take some time to answer some questions. If you need to take off, that's understandable. You can. I took a little bit longer than I had planned, but so it is about 1:30, but